Hello and welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. So over here in the Northern Hemisphere, our growing season is pretty much done. But that doesn't mean that I need to stop growing. So a lot of you know that I am growing a fall and winter garden. I've definitely got some things out in my garden and in my greenhouse, but sometimes those things don't come to fruition. I have had garden failures in the past and it's quite sad. So one of the things that I do to kind of make sure that I do have fresh things from my farm throughout the winter season is I like to grow microgreens. Inside this box we have the large microgreens kit from So Right Seeds. In this box is everything that we're gonna need besides a little bit of water to grow our microgreens. One of the things I really like about this kit is each microgreens seed, each variety has its own seed packet. So the large microgreens kit comes with red cabbage, we've got some kale, cress, arugula, peas, broccoli, radish, and sunflower. Now something I'm going to note about these seed packets is there's a ton of seeds in here. These are filled this high with seed, and if you know anything about brassica seeds, they are quite small, so there's a whole bunch in here. Actually, one of these packets will get you 2 different trays of microgreens and then some. If you weren't already aware, microgreen seeds, there's nothing really special about them. If you were to plant these individual seeds, you would get the full-size versions of these plants. So to get the most bang for your buck, what I would personally do, and what I am planning to do, is actually take, I don't know, 15, 20 seeds out of each of these packets and put them in a separate packet so that I can grow some of these plants to their full size. So we can get our microgreens and we can get our full-size cabbage and we can save some money in the process. So along with the seeds, the kit comes with these trays. There's a lid for each tray, and this is important. We'll get into why. And then it comes with more than enough soil to get the job done. With microgreens, you don't need a whole lot of soil. They're not really going to be getting much, if any, nutrition out of the soil because they're harvested so quickly. Really, this is just so your microgreens have something to root into so that they can stand up straight. So what I'm planning to do today with you guys is plant 3 different varieties. And I selected these varieties because they have the same amount of blackout time. And I'll get into what that means. On the back of the seed packet says that the 12 grams of seeds that are in here can seed up to 35 square inches of a tray. So these trays are 3 inches by 5 inches. So if you do the math, this is only 15 square inches. So we're only going to be putting in a little less than half of the packet into our seed tray. So we get to repeat this process multiple times with one kit, which has a lot of value. I'm going to grow our 3 different varieties in 3 separate trays. If you wanted to combine them and get like a microgreens mixture, you could absolutely do that. I would just make sure that the blackout time and the soak needs of your microgreens are within the same window for the best results. So our little seed starting mix here is mostly just cocoa coir. It looks like there might be a little bit of perlite or vermiculite in there. I'm gonna put just a tiny bit in the bottom of each tray. Now the seed starting mix that comes with the kit is quite dry. You don't really want there to be, you don't want it to be soupy, but you need it to be wet enough where the seed starting mix is damp throughout. So the initial watering of the soil in order to get it to hydrate is going to be more intense than the subsequent waterings that we're gonna do. Remember, there's no drainage holes at the bottom of these trays, so we need to be mindful about not overwatering, which is a good reason to use a sprayer if you've got access to one. As a reminder, the microgreen seeds that I'm planting today don't require any pre-soaking. Some seeds just need a lot more water to get them out of their dormant period. The peas is one of those, and so are the sunflowers, but the red cabbage, the kale, and the cress, they don't need any kind of soaking time, so we can just get right to planting. There's a whole bunch of seeds down in there, and I'm only going to be using just less than half of them, and I'm going to sprinkle them as evenly as I can on the top of this damp soil. I've actually grown microgreens a couple different ways. I have grown them in soil like this, but I've also kind of doubled up some bamboo paper towels and moistened those and grown microgreens on those quite successfully. I just wanted to point that out so you knew that there was more than one way to do this in order to have success. Another thing with this kit that is a little bit different than the way that I've grown microgreens in the past is the instructions that come with the kit don't require you to put a weight on top of your seeds. So what I mean by that is a lot of microgreens instructions will have you putting another tray on top of your seeds and adding a weight into this tray. And what that does is it pushes the seedlings down into your substrate, into the moist soil or the moist paper towel, and helps the first root that comes out understand that it has to go down. Sometimes that first little root comes out and it goes a little bit haywire and it doesn't get this signal from above that it needs to grow downward. The solution that Sow Right Seeds has for this is to just sprinkle a little bit of more soil on top of the seedlings here. This is going to help the seedlings get more moisture content all around the seed. And this is more like what we would just do in our garden, which obviously works really well. One reason that you may not want to do this, especially if you're going to be selling your microgreens, is sometimes when the seeds sprout, some of this soil can end up on top of your microgreens, and it's just more stuff to clean off. But especially for home use, it's really not that big of a deal, and you don't have to think about adding a weight on top and managing that. So it just takes a step out of it and helps make it a little bit easier. So at this point, I'm just going to tamp it down and make sure we've got good soil contact with the seeds. I am noticing that a few of my seeds are not covered by the soil. That's not a huge deal that some of them aren't covered. Microgreens really don't need a whole ton of soil to grow well. So what I'm going to do next is actually begin our blackout period. One of our main goals with growing microgreens is achieving this longer stem so that they're easier to harvest. And the way that we achieve that is depriving the brand new baby seedlings of light for just a little bit. We don't want to deprive them of light for the entire length of their admittedly short life, because the light that we do give them later on is going to contribute to a lot of nutrition. So if we didn't give these seedlings light, we wouldn't be seeing these beautiful colors. And with vegetables, colors mean nutrition. So we do want that, but not right now. So we're covering the seedlings so that they don't get light for around 4 days. Now during this 4-day period, I will be peeking in here and make sure things aren't drying out. They really shouldn't be drying out too much because there's not going to be moisture that's going to be allowed to evaporate because we're covering them up, but I still want to make sure. And if it's important to you, don't forget to label things. Put the date on there so you don't get lost. Here we go. Now during this 4-day blackout period, we can stack them like this to help save space. And as I mentioned, we just need to check on them every couple of days, so once or twice during the blackout period, just to make sure things aren't drying out and that the germination is happening. I'll be right back when it's time to take off the lids. Alrighty, so it's been actually 5 days since we put these inside the trays, and I have been coming in every so often, every day or so, and making sure that everything is still nice and humid in here. As you can see, we do have some germination. There's a little bit of a spot here that I missed. I can actually see a few little seedlings starting down here, but it's time to take the lid off. I can't leave this lid on for longer than recommended because the seedlings that did germinate, it's gonna make them suffer. And there's actually, I'm trying to remember what it's called, but there's something where if you have your seedlings in too much humidity for too long of a time, it actually will make them rot. So we do need to get the airflow going in here, and these guys do need to be introduced to light. Now you don't need any like fancy lighting for this. You don't even necessarily need direct sunlight. Indirect sunlight in a sunny-ish window is gonna work just fine. I actually don't have a southern facing window in my house at all. They say that southern exposure is the best for indoor plants, but it doesn't really matter for these. Usually you don't want your seedlings that are going to be full mature plants to be leggy like this. You don't want them stretching for light. But with microgreens, you actually do want that. That's why we had this time of blackout period to encourage the seedlings to get long like this. And if they get a little bit longer, that's fine. The whole point of them seeing a little bit of sun is so that they can green up and increase their nutrition. So the one I've been waving around here is the kale. And I had less than amazing
initial germination on the cabbage. So I did add a couple more seeds in there a few days ago, and they've started to germinate in there. So I'm going to give the whole tray a little bit of sunlight on my kitchen window, and I am going to make sure to continually mist these things. There's not very much soil in the bottom of this pan, and it will dry out pretty quickly, and we don't want that. I did notice that our tray of cress seedlings was ready to come out of the blackout period a day before the rest of the seedlings, so those have been inside on my counter for a day, and you can see that they're already starting to green up. Alrighty guys, so here we are. It's been about a week, maybe a little bit longer. These microgreens have actually been at their ideal state for a few days, and I just haven't had time to record this video for you. I did already harvest the cress microgreens because these were ready a little bit sooner than the other two. We had kale and cabbage. And you can probably see in here there are some little bits of soil medium, and this is best avoided by not covering the seeds of your microgreens with soil. And I knew that, but now I'm going to wash these a little bit better before we can eat them. However, we also covered these, and I think because of the broad leaves on these particular plants, soil just fell right off when it came to watering the last couple of times. So it's time to harvest these, and it's going to be easier if we pop them out of the tray. The way that we know our microgreens are ready to harvest is we start to see the first little true leaves of the plant. So we have these two leaves right here. These are called cotyledons. These are the seedling leaves of the plant. And in the middle of those two cotyledons is the true leaves starting to grow. So once those barely start to poke out, that is the ideal time to harvest your microgreens. Get a load of this. This is cool. There's a whole root mat right there. Oh, isn't that so cool? So if we look underneath, this is how the roots were way intertwined in there. So I've got some kitchen shears here, and all we're gonna do to harvest these is grab the microgreens by their tops and snip away. Just like that. We're gonna do the same thing with the cabbage microgreens. I'm just gonna pull them out of the tray. You can see these ones have a much purpler stem, if purpler is a word. It is today. Those colors are where the nutrition is, so that is exactly what we wanted. It's one of the things that makes the difference. There's a couple things, but it's one of the things that makes the difference between microgreens and sprouts, is microgreens have a little bit of extra time to develop in the sunlight and to gain a little bit of added nutrition because of that. So we are done with our harvest. We've got quite a bit of greens here, and I'll tell you how we use these in just a second. These little root mats here, these are perfect for the compost bin. You could feed them to your animals. These little bits that have fallen here, they are amongst quite a bit of dirt, so these are going to be chicken food as well. These little sprouts, they're delicious. They taste exactly like the adult plant with a little bit of, I don't know, seedling freshness. I don't know how to describe it. So I can taste cabbage and I can taste kale, but there's this crisp, fresh newness that just isn't there in the mature plant. And it's super good. I think you should give it a try. But overall, I really think that the seedling kit from So Right Seeds is a really great starter pack. It is a great place to get your feet wet when it comes to microgreens. They walk you through the whole process. If my video isn't enough to help you understand how to start, they have their own videos out there about starting them and harvesting. And if you're interested in buying your own kit, I have a link in the description box. I'm going to put it down in the pinned comment. Don't forget to add our coupon code to it so you can get a discount. So we've got our lovely greens, and what now? So essentially the options are endless. Right now it's fall time and into the winter. We like to eat lots and lots of soups, and these make really great garnishes for soups. Actually, the other day I, on a video, served, it was pork roast with sauerkraut, and the whole plate just looked kind of beige, which isn't necessarily a problem, but I wanted to add a little bit of spice to the plate. So I didn't add microgreens to the top of the roast, but I had some sprouts that I had grown inside my house.
But that would be a really great option. You can add it on top of any kind of meat. We've added it on top of eggs before, on sandwiches, inside smoothies. Really, the options are endless. Growing microgreens is a really viable way to grow a good amount of nutrition in a really small space where maybe you don't have ideal light situation. You need a little bit of light, but really not much. I put these guys in our west facing window because I don't have a south facing window in our house. And actually for the last couple days, they were just sitting here in my shed with indirect light all day, and they did great. They did just fine. When it comes to storage, what I'm going to do is put a lid on this and put it in the refrigerator, and they'll be good for probably about a week. Usually they don't last too much longer than that. I really like to grow microgreens in the fall and winter. It acts like a bonus crop or a backup crop, especially in case something goes wrong with the seedlings that I have in my greenhouse. I still have freshly grown, homegrown, nutritious food that really didn't take a lot of effort and definitely brings a lot of joy as well as nutrition. So what we grew in this video today was microgreens, and I had mentioned growing sprouts. I have done that a whole bunch. The process is a little bit different, and if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about that process, go ahead and click this video.